You know what? I want to get Jerry's take. Being a developer, I want to get your input, and I got to go back to Sega. Um, like I said, I'm a big Sega fanboy. So, how did you feel when Sega made their announcement of bringing back their classics?
Um, I love classics, so um,
Like,
I'm all for bringing stuff back. I mean, there's so many generations now of the new folks that are young that haven't played a lot of that stuff, and like we're talking about Space Channel 5.
mhm.
That was such a successful thing and it just died. I don't know why. um did it not do well? Because it seemed like it did well. And why don't we bring some of these, like, here's another one. Do you guys remember Lunar? There
Mhm.
was Lunar, Silver Star Story, and Eternal Blue that
Hmm.
came out on the Sega CD, and that was one of the
Yeah.
first RPG games that made me laugh my ass off because the comedy in there was so great. And then they released it on the PlayStation, and it
Mhm.
was more true to the original dialogue. It wasn't as funny. But where are the Lunar games? Like, I know there's a developer that still owns the IP, but come on, people, there's a market for it, right? But yeah, having Sega bring back stuff that people haven't played before, let's do it. Why not?
Hell
Is
yeah.
that your take? Are you like, no, lock them down?
No, I'm super excited. Like when Sega, I made a little quick video of my reaction because when Sega announced that they were gonna do Golden Axe and Jet Set Radio, and I was jumping up and down. I was so happy.
Uh-huh.
So I can't wait. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah, let's see it. Next generation, right?
Sega's earned a lot of goodwill from me over the past few years, especially recently. Their Sonic games have actually really turned a corner. Frontiers was
Mhm.
really good. Um, all their Yakuza games are good. Yeah, they are making good stuff. I think they're about to screw up.
Oh yeah.
Not that bringing these games back was a bad idea, but just the way they're doing it doesn't make any sense. Like they're making Jet Set Radio. I heard somewhere it's going to have guns in the game or something. They're focusing on
What?
online. Yeah.
Hmm.
Again, I don't know if that's true, but that's like a rumor that Jet Set's going to have guns in the game. Like, well, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Well,
Um,
well, first person shooters are like one of the most popular things out there right now. So are they trying to capture that audience? Because
well,
that
this
doesn't
is
make
what
any sense.
they're trying to make online games, like games that you play forever.
Uh-huh.
That's I think that's what their angle is going to be. And I think
Mhm.
multiple games like Crazy Taxi is going to have that stuff implemented like out the yin yang. Like they'll probably sell it for like $5 and like here's a bunch of microtransactions, here's a bunch of things
Mhm.
you can do to continue playing the game forever in perpetuity that nobody wants. Just make the game. Let me pay you for the game,
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean, am I wrong? Sure. There's like Wes said, there's probably 5 or 6 of these games. Some of them might come out like that, and I'll be happy to pay them for those and try them out. But your
Mhm.
ones where you're gonna implement all this online live service stuff, like, sorry, I'm not paying you for that. I don't care how cool people say it
Yeah.
is. You've completely lost my interest at that point.
Hmm. It brings back memories too of I think it was Crazy Taxi and Twisted Metal. But well, The Simpsons. Did you guys ever play the Crazy Taxi version of The Simpsons?
Road rage.
Mhm.
Yep.
Road Rage.
Yeah, that game had so many effing bugs in there. It was fun to play because you would try and figure out ways to crash the game.
Dude, that game was a blast. It was a
It was-
look. It was a kind of a dumb game, but it was fun to play. You are no joke, man. That game was a blast.
yeah, but it had a lot of unlockables in there, if I remember correctly. And now, if they were to make that game today, those unlockables would all be you'd have to pay for them all. It wouldn't just be
Exactly.
like, oh, I'm a skilled gamer. It's, oh, how much money can you fork out?
Right. And I'm sure that's probably. I mean, I'm not sure. Let me be okay. I feel confident in saying that they're going to do something along those lines with the Crazy Taxi. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's just set up for it. The stuff I'm hearing with Jet Set is it's going to have it. Golden Axe is probably safe, but I think it's the developers behind Golden Axe developed something else that was not very good or something. There was like a remake of Golden Axe like a few years ago, and I think
Hmm.
they didn't
Mhm.
do a good job with that, and they're the ones in charge of this one. So I'm like, if they failed the first time, why are you giving it to them the second time? Like, I don't quite understand that, but
Maybe
sure.
they learned their lesson. I don't know.
I don't know. So this is where I go to. I feel like they're making mistakes, but I mean, it's not out yet, so who knows?
Yeah, I've worked on sequels before where we we'll create the first one, uh, and then during the production of that first game, we'll be like, oh, we don't not gonna have time to put it in this one, so let's put it in the second one. We'll save it for later, and then you get to the second one, and sometimes it would make it in, and sometimes it wouldn't. Um, but sometimes the game would just turn out crap. It's like you had all this time to figure out your recipe, and it just falls apart. Um, yeah, I'm not going to get into this other game. I get sued by EA. But we worked on a lot of sequels, and we got some direction from certain studios that was not good in the long run. And we'd argue with these studios, that we were a third party developer for some of those games, like even Crash Bandicoot, Aragon, Lord of the Rings, Sims, some 007, Harry Potter. When I was at a studio, we were third party, and we were working directly under the umbrella of all those second party studios, like EA and Warner Brothers, to then take it to Nintendo and Sony or whoever else, and they give you direction. And we're the dev team, we're the ones that are making it happen. And you just have like some bigwig come in from the office and be like, punching holes in your design and telling you, hey, you need to redo it this way. And we could be like 80% done with the game and 2 months left to ship, and they're like, no, we want you to start completely over, but we still want it in 2 months. And so you ship a steaming pile right out the door, and you kill your dev team. I remember death marches they're still a thing, but we'd work like 80 hours a week for 6 months or 6 weeks straight, sometimes, like trying to catch up with something. Like our entire team was living at the office. We'd have blankets and pillows and burnt coffee pots, and I mean, it was just like, it was a fart den. I mean, it was just awful that like some of these development cycles, people don't realize how hard some of these devs work. But some of the sequels, by the time you have all the people at the top have their opinions and the last minute scenario, you take a game that was actually pretty good in the beginning, and it comes out of steam and pile because there's just too many people poking their fingers in it and ruining it. And I'm sure that's happened to many other devs. And you mentioned Golden Axe and how that last one came out. I was thinking about that, and I was like, maybe it wasn't the dev's fault. Maybe it was somebody above poking their fingers in the pie,
Fair
and
enough.
it fell apart.
Yeah.
You never know. But I just know those weeks where it's 80 hours in the office. Sometimes you don't even go home, and you're there on a Sunday and you're working, and you're just so tired that the development just turns to crap. And that's another reason why I'm always adamant about our community and taking care of people. And in the game industry, we really, I think, need some unions, and we've seen kind of that upturn recently. And unions back in the 2000s would have helped protect a lot of those projects that I was on before, where if they were in place, that those death marches wouldn't have happened that way. We would have gotten paid for our work, we would have had time with our families, all those kinds of things, and even layoff protection, which if we had done that work 20 years ago, where would the industry be today? And we'd be in a much better spot. We wouldn't all be getting laid off like we are. We'd have payments that we'd have to do for maintaining it. But anyway, I know I'm going on a different subject here, but I'm passionate about it, to protect the industry and things like that. So I'm hoping we see a lot more of this kind of spin up, to protect people and things like that, with unionization and things like that. It's heartbreaking to see some of the stories that came out of Blizzard and on all those other crazy stories and things like that. And anyway, I just think we need go unions. As long as I've been in the industry, I think it could really make a difference for our future generations. And the folks that I'm working with at DSI right now, I had this conversation with them during a diversity and inclusion meeting. And I said, I don't want you guys in 20 years being in my position, where the industry is still going through this, churn of people like we don't matter, we don't belong. But anyway, I'll save that conversation for another time. But now that I'm like long story in, but yeah, it really can impact the production of games when you're grueling at 80 hours a week, and you turn out something that everybody worked so hard on, and it's just an awful game in the long run.
Well, I think I definitely agree with the unionization. I mean, at the bottom of the totem pole, you guys all deserve to get credited for the work that you do. And they like excommunicate you from like, oh, you left with 1 month left on the game. We're not putting your name in the credits. Like, what?
Yeah.
You were there for the first four
Mm-hmm.
years of the game development. You left at the last month, and you're not going to put them in the credits. Like that. I mean, I'm just saying this is the bare minimum that you guys deserve.
Yeah.
That has to happen, and then you guys, at some levels, you should be getting royalties. Whether you have to be at the high end or not. I mean, like even in QA testers, you can give them something. Like, I'm not saying you need to give them the bank, right? But give them something. Like, if you have a game like Fortnite and your creators are getting royalties,
Yeah.
that is wild,
Yeah.
wild. Like, come on, and it doesn't even need to be to that scale, right? Your game sells 1 million copies, you guys should be getting royalties for that. And I'm not saying you should get the entire like that. Like, you made $5 billion. You're all going to get a huge chunk, but you should get something in
Right.
perpetuity. If you resell that game 20 years later because there's nostalgia around it, you should get something for the work that
Yeah.
you've done in the original.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
that. It happens in movies. How
yeah,
is it
it's
not going to
Hollywood.
happen in games? Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It's ratified in Hollywood, and yeah, I would love that. I could probably retire.
Well,
So,
it's bullshit. Like, it is. Like, I'm sorry, it is. It's just, it's not fair. It's
yeah.
not.
And I could make room for the new generation. Like, I'm done. I'm out. I did my work. You guys go play those games. They're done. And now hire somebody else in my spot and let them take over.
Think
But
about how much, if you were in that position, how much creative power you could give to other people and how much more interesting things could be created. I'm not saying that you're not an interesting person or anything like that. That's not my point. My point is that you would have the freedom and the money to do whatever you want. And
Mm-hmm.
if you like teaching other people how to do those things, you'd have infinite amount of time because you have the money to do those things. It's
yeah,
only going to produce more and better products in the future.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I do love teaching. Like we were talking about the classic pixel art earlier and why it was set up the way it was. And people, you can go to Full Sail or DigiPen now, and they don't teach that stuff, as far as I'm aware, according to the people that came out of Full Sail. Um, where's the history of the foundation of, you know, I mean, they teach classical music and classical art, and we teach history in school, but we don't teach video game history of how things were created and founded. It's just whatever's current now, and that's it. That's all that's important.
Hopefully, one day that'll change.
Hmm. Yeah, I can work in the museum. I can point people to things.
We got to keep teaching people, man. Otherwise, we're going to lose the art form completely, right? There has to be people to teach people, the younger generations. Otherwise, we're not going to know how they actually made, the 2D pixel art.
Yeah, it's funny when I bring all it up at, with the folks that I work with now, they're amazed. It blows their mind, some of the stuff that we talk about, why things were set up a certain way. They're just like, no idea. And it's kind of tragic that we have lost some of that knowledge. Our industry is built on, layers and layers and layers of technology and layers of hard work, and how we got to where we are today. And we can look at all the platforms in the past. We're talking about the Genesis and the Super Nintendo and all these different things. Those platforms were built with the technology of the time, and those games were built to fit into those limitations of those times. And someone of today that's playing video games for the first time, that are kids and things like that, they look back at that stuff and they go, that looks old and crappy. And you go, well, it was groundbreaking at the time. I remember the FX chip
Mm-hmm.
when that thing came out, and they had FX racers, and that thing, looking back on it, is kind of a hot piece of garbage, but it was really fun when it came out, and it did look pretty good. But
Star
it's
Fox looked great on it.
yeah, I mean, the original polys right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your original polygons. But it's history. It's who we are. It's what we're built on. All these. I mean, look at the evolution of Laura Croft, for God's sakes. Like her first model to today, right? Like blocks, and
Yeah.
now she looks like a real human being, along with all the other modern characters and stuff. But her test of time, of her evolution. We can also look at Mario 64, from even the pixelated versions of Super Mario Brothers, Mario Brothers 3. You can see the transition in the pixels actually got better. That's because the palette limitations expanded, right? So there's so many of those different things that we can see the history and the lineage.